Tashi dile Tajakala Yopadan de Pepe, Enkidina Batama, Tashi dile Sugi, Trisanje, Sumdi, Nana Sam, Samba Semi, Wamacha, then Saman Bavai, Kamdu Simti, Tamil Bavai, Tashi dile.
Tashi dile to all the Sangha on the live stream. And all of you assembled here, I'm offering you from the Buddha's begging bowl this milk tea of immeasurable love, and I'm offering that to all the sentient beings in the 3 realms of samsara. Tashi delek.
Arbadan Thomjen Jimbe Bardo Jubar Seba Thomje Gator Sebe Manam Kadan Yambe Simje Thomje Deva Dante Donga Danta Nyurdu Lana Meba Yanda Yoga Sancho Rinpoche Topasha.
All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. All mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment.
Maje pardo lunga yesum gewala tuterena zonda nyama santa samjeba lunga yesum gewala.
For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue.
Kedorim jene bata, ebjen dola pendonda, sancho semne cheche, ebjen tunne la bala, rembaje, sabaje.
I take refuge in the Buddhas until attaining the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until attaining the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path.
Sanje chudan sujen chonan la, sanjo bardu dane chapsunche, kage jinso jimbe sunamje, dola penso sanjen rubasho.
Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings.
Manam Don Yambe Simchen Tom Je Deva Don Deva Jo Deva Don Dimba Church Dong Ha Dan Dong Ha Je Jo Dan Tawa Dan Church Dong Ha Me Be Deva Dan Mem Jarwa Church Nyeren Cha Dan Nye Dan Jar Tonyo La Neva Church
May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as space, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Ram Jan Jam So Shen Gen Jor Pe So Ma Lu Lo Ye Land Ber La Na Ten Yen Do Kun Tu Je Zong De So Da Lu Long Ju Do Pa Chin Che Tang Om Kam Chin Chi Chayon De Ma Chi Da De Zong Wen Ngu Bu Chur Che Kung Ber Jie Dan Jin Che Va Sen Je Lo Nge Dan Nge Men Tha Le Yong Zhe Shen Jenga Ne Wong Zho Wong Ta Che Che Men Chen Len Den Ne Lo Men Dra Cho Her Ve San Her Sing Je Lo.
An infinite array of worlds, each with 4 continents and the wealth of infinite oceans of realms. If I bring them all to mind and offer them without exception, please hold with compassion all the beings they contain. My body enjoyments and whatever I own, my aggregates, elements, and sense sources, my aspirations now and in times to come, as well as everything I grasp as mine. By offering them all, may I be blessed with the end of self-grasping. Completely liberated from the bounds of real and unreal, transcending the names and attributes of arising, cessation, and abiding, coming and going, affirmation and denial. The supreme mandala is the natural state. When I offer it, bless me to attain the state of Buddhahood.
Om Guru Deva Drakana Naman Pati Sova. Page 11. Sem Nam Je Sambata Lo Ye Seda Jetava Chon Tu Monte Baye Chu Jen Kolo
Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the greater, lesser, and common vehicles according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings.
自动动啊就是促进亲要聪明嘛就一路身体动作要的当心了那么促进人就到的时候这里就弄吧了多帮些了大个说就给就让他们来讲到身体面上了说吧就是这个第人的东西不有的第三个第这不可的我说身体的错了这不有的超容的我这这个就行我的变了的面上的不的大上我身体吧的可能上就不能的身体国家讲送个面上不就是抓着龙王过头这面上的怕做了面上的这批就不行了的呢假设那对人家在那上的人个用尽些呢的呢你把你送些什么差不多了怕做了这到人的这用地的这我这种用地的嘛这是呢大不是不上去往我啥不老上我的这里没得都大那给你的说这别下在他哪里讲的我说你怎么的这个都那差劲了到国啥的啥国啥人看吧国啥的上这种自己像这种经验有啥的上的他没啥的可批发开的老我这嘛这吃对吧那这个是吧这里怎么的那我这种我这个这里大的感觉那边那边那生活上的这吃的没那里边我的没啥的那种我觉得理解的这个长没把身体长没把有这他们个人身体加上身体加上当地的加上的东大的当地的不过身体上的等于如果突击上的说的呢工作个当地的怕行的你出来一批个落的出来你这个当地的行落的这边的当地的不过的本来这是我在当地的做大上这心脏的这个的这说个那说了的这种借用他们让的朋友的人啥的他包括是没这样子上了的呢这里面来的那边让的还叫错这个这叫关系
my friends, so those practices that we always do are taking refuge, cultivating bodhicitta, and offering a mandala. And each of them is extremely meaningful. And if we just think about the meaning of one of these practices, then a very strong feeling can arise in our mind. And when that feeling arises, then the ice block of the mind is somewhat melting. So yesterday we spoke about the mind generation when we talked about the prayer for excellent conduct. But now regarding the mandala offering, people often have questions about the mandala offering. And so when we offer a mandala elaborately, it becomes really vast. So we offer this billion-fold universe, each with the 4 continents and Mount Meru and so on. And then each of these has a certain quality it represents. So if we were to only talk about all these qualities contained in the mandala, it would take us 2 to 3 full days of talking about that. But so when we bring these qualities to mind, then when we offer a mandala, we bring these qualities to mind, and then we think I'm offering it up to the Pure Lands. So this is how one of the highest mental capacities will think of it. But otherwise, often some doubts may arise in our minds regarding the mandala offering. And so that is, people often wonder, now we make these vast offerings to the Buddha. And now we're giving some money, and when we wonder, maybe the Buddhas need that land, that they need a building and so on, and they want to have that. So what's really the benefit of making a mandala offering? Therefore, we should not think of it in this elaborate sense in that case. We should condense it into its essence. And so that is also why I added this particular mandala offering that comes from Milarepa's Guru Yoga practice into our opening prayers. And so And that comes from the Kagyu tradition by Chamgyun Kongdro. And so, even though elaborately there is this billionfold universe, each with 4 continents and Mount Meru and so on, corresponding to the limitless sentient beings that exist in that universe. And so, however, what we need to understand is that what actually happened that there are sentient beings at all these limitless sentient beings. There are sentient beings because of self-grasping. So what we really need to offer up is self-grasping, therefore. And so this is what the Buddhas themselves had done. They gave rise to an altruistic mind, and in this way, they eliminated their own self-grasping. So we have to tame our own self-grasping. And so therefore, the most important thing to offer up, to give away, is our self-grasping. And so I myself actually also had some doubts about that in the past. Like, why is it that we make these vast offerings? And I thought that, of course, there must be some benefit in the mandala offering, but I still wondered about it. And then thinking about it again and again, that's the conclusion I came to. And anyways, because when reading this particular mandala offering by Milarepa, Milarepa's Guru Yoga, a strong feeling arose in me, and that is why I added that to our prayer book.
Data Tashi are in the Tujin on the central program to deal them off.
In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. And so when we think about this world, for example, starting from World War I, World War II, up until the present day, all the suffering that the world has gone through, who created that suffering? It really was created by self-grasping, because from self-grasping arise hatred, attachment, and ignorance. And so as a result of that, then some individuals developed a corrupt aspiration in their mind. And then once the conditions for them were complete, they caused a lot of harm. So then we often point our fingers and we say, oh, they did that. Or we think that. But actually, who really did it is self-grasping. When one cultivates an altruistic mind and at least has a view of equalizing self with others, one wouldn't engage in such negative actions. For example, nowadays the world has gone through so much difficulties, and then on top of that, some even come and cause wars and fight with each other. And we're all people, so the person doing that is a person doing it to other people. In that regard, we're the same, but then there is other people who, for example, try to come up with methods to help others, like try to develop medicines and so on to help others. And so why is it that some people engage in negative activities? It is because of self-grasping and the negative karmic imprints, the habitual tendencies. And so these are what cause us to wander endlessly since beginningless time in samsara. And they arise in various forms, subtle and coarse. But it all is the fault of self-grasping. And so yesterday in our text, we spoke about, on page 19 in the small print, the favorable conditions. So what is the difference between favorable conditions and unfavorable conditions? Now, for example, there's some people who think that when they practice the Dharma, sometimes that then they encounter unfavorable conditions. For example, there's many people say, I started to practice the Dharma, I did retreat, and then I got so sick. So what we should understand about favorable and unfavorable conditions is that so a favorable condition arises as a result of actions we have performed in previous lives. If we have understood the importance of bodhicitta and understood karma, cause and effect. It is said, if you wish to know what you did in the past, look at your present body, your present life. And so whatever we experience in this life, in the Dharma or in a worldly sense, if things go right, if we are successful, then this favorable condition comes from having cultivated love in the past. And so therefore, since it is love, since the favorable condition really is love, then who is the one who had realized that? It is the Buddha. The Buddha is the one who had realized that and who had given that to us. And so when you recognize that, you will feel that the Buddha's qualities are so incredible. And then he also gave us a method to use this love so that we actually have something, a way to practice love. And that is the taking of the Bodhisattva vow. And again, that was given to us by the Buddha. And so the Buddha also said, in the beginning, I develop a mind of enlightenment. So this is how he gave it to us. So these are those favorable conditions. Or if you think that, why have I turned out well? Why are things going all right for me? I know how to practice. I clearly understand karma. And that is because of bodhicitta. And again, when you recognize that, you remember the kindness of the Buddha. And the Buddha essentially is the mind of wisdom. With your own mindfulness, with your own wisdom, you recognize the qualities of the Buddha. And the Buddha's teachings is the Dharma, and the essence of the Dharma is love and compassion. And the workings on karma, cause and effect. And if you understand karma, it is like you have received a piece of gold or something very precious. So that is the favorable condition. If you possess this favorable condition, then you're able to remember the kindness of the Buddha and of the Dharma, and then recognize that through the Buddha and the Dharma, I have now become a Sangha. I am now a good person. So yesterday we already spoke about those favorable conditions a little bit, and I shared with you according to my own, or based on my own experiences.
The home to the Laboria. To the Garden, Julie, the both to the Lord, doing Tony, Tapu the young land, or Tashi, took it, Tapu Lord, doing Tony. Got the little Lama, Chang Lama Serese, got it, good among one of the good on the Caducean the reason the season will go Yachi. Malaman there, the Gia trains that the young back charting. To G, there is a Gia cherub train in a did it under only 30 or Lama 10 setting. Just this one to go to that day. Gia did that, they low rung within a theatre. Chutong theatre, Gia train. There is in the town. Pachugola, Ramang, Mimiko, Shoko, Jimmy, woman, they were then teaching Ramjing. Soon, number of things on the Gigi, among shares they do in Mango Yore, Ramjing and Tuji, the counties on that, young Hamagatari, Jogia and David Devade, and Young Gore, Tayore, Tuji say Young, Jenita, Ta, Dignity, and Gatita Tabamon. Tuji the Jeta Garchi Level, Garchi come with it. Thought that Toman and Kajan taking on major Manang, Tado, Tanga Chitta Chase out. Kaji Utati Lad Tanka is down to take it to us. That day of Garchi Angate, not a Pache Gati, Pache, Doxy theory. Gia Mamma Lama gave senior the Tamsek China on Chiro, Chiro Pituna, the Tamsek Yamsona. Take it is that I have to give out to her. Tabla, Kachi, or Tam and Momogotin, they thought our was Secretary, Jolly, they Tamsin Gati, Doxy, they come in strong dealer, Jell, Lama and Chirora, the Garson that the Tatum to the Japan and somewhere, Chero Dodgevin and the Rangler. Council Dodgevin and somewhere. The deep marks and changing Dodgy Bruna Tripani, but you was somebody so. Don't took me the Dodgy Bruna Pinch, there is a Tamthing Yamson, it is also by young Tamchis I to do a party in your Lori, that a Tamthik about the Catchable, so they were a theatre, there is a Gatin, and Gati Chibo Cariso with dinner. Tarangi, Sabla de Jogo lost them, told your lord. Lord, you want the dead child, there is Chopalang. There is a lot of it, must have that Kangin chair. That the Dungy Yong Satan, Maga Dungy Yong Satan, then on Yong Mango, Jerry, Yen the Sherry Matava, Dungy Yong already. Dungy, the other that Namba Saje, but Chili Yong D. Caridilla. Dungy, the Devan songs about. Oh, Dungy, Devan songs about. Oh, you move, you should just do get Devan songs about. Do we got Devan songs? 다랑 종강을 송 라게 판초고 잡먹게 레세대 코티리 다 종강을 송나 다 종강을 단장되니 자가 봐요 라고도 라고 요말이 이 같이 거야 다 잡지도 매실 맞아봐 참이 송강을 내서 하고 딘낭이들이 라로고 송강때 하저 독서지들이 요래 이 메시를 항상 막세 또는 대상 동은 저거에서 용을 이 감리 용들이 득박강을 저버쳐 봐다지 다지 득바시 봐다 득바지 없다 지금 욕강에서 또 단디리 그 말에서 사지 박차 양 들이다지 오는 용을 마마 접지에 다들 르르뚜들 가다 소설을 항상 못하나 소설 대화 가는데 대화 중에 오는데第三제 용들이 야가마 대사가 놀러 좀 대지막은 되버리 대지막은 되버리 demate 동시와 사제 같은 게 사제 기술이 주상이 때 같은 게 동의식 주문에서 다 베기벨레 다랑나 다 동의 때문에 들랑 맞지 대랑을 내때도 제요래 다다지 생남을 잘아먹게 야로는데 다다 야탐정 길이 보고서 이거는 인도할 때도 강해 되고래 Tsering 가리들이 종강을 내가 지역을 다들 야탐들 동행기와 또랑 용화래서 다들 내 장기 요래서 렉송 삼들만이 줄이던가 요만 은혜를 비가들 수가들 축가들 야 전지적으로 가와라든 만취비지 같이서는 대사들이 동해 대화를 줘지 오세노 요나 영강 라기 사진 강동을 라서 달리자 상성 프로소성 양마가 마디모나메레 야고도야 다를 동덕 제문에 다지는 동덕 세 통을 인차 좀 넓어버리 차대 동동도 내 마음을 인차세들 다들 인차 섬대 대해서 죽어는 성을 딜차 가래버 어디랑 그지 나디기 제요리 나디에 대해서 딜대어 가라다 메고 요리 득바도 되지 레는 사자리에 남가가 손들이 남가를 것도 설마고 요래지 제 사자리 시는 소거래 칼라 마땅 또저는 토와 보인 토던 밥송 남가가 똑바도 야다르는 걸 마음을 이 덱제 다테도 득바시 봐지 이 대로 사지가 따따 레들 득바지 뭐다 저 처럼도 덱을 하고 말이야 다 강체 딱다다 남을 놓았다는 신경 막 탐제를 놓아 가렸다는 레좀 제마시 좀 제주고 되는 용요래 들들 다다 득득 용화나 들랑은 다 강의 용화 다시를 못 잡아요 대야나 뭐시 대 용어들 로지설 용요래 로지설 용어들 심로 들은가 동이 독삼이 탱기로 다시를 가사를 해서는데 랑셔 탑지 조가탑 파동양 따라서 조가탑 그런 거 취탐전 조가탑이지 대주까지서 다 조금 반 시선을 역사를 했어 셔부터 고등가 세그리서 세바동나 그래서 동네 농막 털때 셔가사에서 로송데 라시야 잠에 그래서 만투지송은 지리성부터 다들 만투지에서 조리지 일란이 소되면은 개별용 줘도 버자ste 노디 삼년 기대다서 지지리때 삼부대 공부들 레지 탐세를 거도 능지 고솔로 나온 요말 고주 갈아 사고 요리 내가 내려 맞이를 갈아 덮고 요 말에 달래지 탐세를 니게지 뜨니가 내가 가르치려 뭐 페비체들이 정말 좀 좋은게 좀 강단에 하자치고 정도 이렇게 보면 새로 뭐지 대송 하자치게야 나 좀그 찍어야 아니 찍으려고 이뭐 그런 남녀 대병 거자 이래 가지고 고를 내가 얘기한 거야 라지 고쳐서 그 송송 드리고 로이 셔버리면들이 개장용만 주고만 써. 또 이런 요리 좀 하나 거라 요리 이 잠두사님 문화에서 뒤다 못tek 보면 때문에 탑송도 되리삼 이 문화에 삼하다는 코트노가 가서도 특별히 좋으니 호텔 멘탈들이 양반도도 이 산속도 받다 비를 강요 그 말이지 따뜻 조강지 오래 되다 랍터가 책들은 되다 만투에 진짜냐 같이지 travar지도 문화들 무슨 semto beva tabiar bati travar 문화들 걸 semto 오늘 다다 동네 대화를 저지와 무슨 세마들이란 게 semto 매일 토론 용요래 대회들이 다다 종강 답제는 제게 야시저가 비 가오요 종강 답제 때 강의 가로게 하고요 그 싸움도 동신 종강들은 참강나기 답제고 나 그냥 막 칼라 사이버 딱고 종강들 약고 차서 삼이 돼서 저쪽 그래 대외로 되는 가티는 잘고나 대대서 되는 배는 너희 잡을 가티 대마 다는 사람에 뭐 솔로가 지고 사주고 셈을 지바 대비 저기 마성
And so today we come then to the next verse, which speaks then about the adverse conditions. And so this line says, may all negativities and obscurations without exception become purified. And this verse is an aspiration to be free from adverse conditions. So first, now speaking from my own experience, my own life, how if I encountered favorable conditions and then adverse or unfavorable conditions. So first I encountered favorable conditions. I was quite, and that also actually goes back to remembering our previous lives. I was quite young. I was 7 years old when I had the hair from my crown clipped, and I was called a Turku, a reincarnation of a Lama. And during that time, I was brought into a shrine room that was filled with many different statues. And one monk would ask me, so which one of these is your Lama? And so there was this whole array of statues representing the entire golden garland lineage of the Kagyu lineage. And I immediately, spontaneously pointed at Chigden Sumgön wearing a meditation hat. And I said, this is my guru, this is my Lama. I actually remember that. And this also is one of the examples of how we remember our past lives, our previous lives. And it's not that we exactly remember what exactly I did here and there, but there's heinous recognition. For example, this is my Lama, without any thought or any specifics, but there's this natural feeling of this is my Lama. And so that is actually also a sign that there are past and future lives. And so I remember that when I was very young, and that is when I still had my freedom. And then later this turned into an unfavorable condition when I lost my freedom and was put into prison. So when we experience favorable conditions, then often things arise just naturally because we have created merit in the past. Because we have practiced virtue in a previous life, good things just happen naturally. And then similarly, bad things just happen naturally if we have created negative karma in a previous life. For example, in that case, as you mentioned before, some people, for example, say, I have done a Dharma practice or a retreat and then I fell ill. And then people think that the Dharma did that. But actually, it was just a condition. The real cause is one's own misdeeds committed in previous lives. Or some people think that, or it's because I hung up this particular tanka and that now I'm experiencing some harm. So if we think in this way and then we turn away from the Dharma, this is actually the worst obstacle or the worst adverse condition. And these kind of conditions arise as a result of having broken samaya in previous lives with our guru and our Vajra siblings. For example, first we engage in Dharma practice, and then sometimes people, they practice the Dharma and then suddenly their mind changes, and then they feel that I don't need the Dharma anymore, I don't want to practice the Dharma anymore. And that's really the worst adverse condition or the worst obstacle. And it is the result of having broken samaya with the guru and Vajra companions in previous lives. It is also mentioned in the 14 root downfalls of Secret Mantra, the confession of the 14 root downfalls. Number 3 says that one must not get angry with, or I confess having gotten angry with my Vajra companions. So this is how we break the Samaya with our Vajra companions. And then as a result of that, in future lives, we encounter obstacles on our Dharma path. For example, our Bodhisattva vow encounters obstacles, and we may split with the Dharma altogether. And so that is the reason why we always say the Samaya is very important. And so now, I'm coming back to my own story. So now speaking about adverse conditions that I have encountered. So then after I had encountered the fortunate, the what is it here? The favorable condition. Then very soon after I encountered unfavorable conditions. And that happened. It started at a time when I was actually doing a 3-year retreat, which I was not able to complete. I was about 2 years in when turmoil broke out in my homeland. And during that time, barbarians came to destroy the Buddha's teachings in our land. And so many people experienced a lot of suffering during that time. And I was put into prison, and so there's actually no need to speak much about it. People can imagine the great suffering that one experiences there. It's actually inexpressible. The suffering that people experienced in those camps is really inexpressible. But then again, what is a quality of the Buddha's teachings? It is that through the teachings we are able to see the suffering as happiness, actually. And that is because when we are able to transform the afflictive emotions into wisdom, then we are able to see suffering as happiness. And so how did that happen in my case? So I was thrown into prison during that time. And before that, I'm also engaged in much negative deeds. I fought in the army, and then I was arrested and put into prison. And while I was in prison, I lost all my freedom, and I had to labor hard, just like an ox in India or Nepal. It is really inexpressible. There's no need to go into the details. Anyone really knows how miserable it is in such a prison. And so that was at a time when so-called barbarians came and destroyed everything. And they would not take people or prisoners and kill them in the most horrific ways. And so there was really incredible suffering. And then however, then we have to reflect, why does such suffering arise? The Buddha said, do not commit any wrong. So what is the cause of such suffering? The cause is karma, and from self-grasping. Because of self-grasping, we developed karmic imprints, habitual tendencies, and these then lead to suffering. As we said, if you want to know what you did in the past, look at your present body. So we can think about our own lives. If you're doing well, if you experience even the slightest happiness, why do you experience this happiness? It is a quality of love that you have cultivated already in previous lives. Or for example, if you are financially doing well, then that is the result of having practiced generosity. And then why do you understand this? It is due to the kindness of the Buddha and the kindness of the Dharma. And so if you experience suffering, on the other hand, that is the result of non-virtuous actions committed in the past. So this is how you need to view it. And so the way I view it now, in my example of having been in prison and having had to work hard like an ox. So in the old Tibetan tradition, we would actually use animals like horses and yaks and so on to carry all of our things, all of our baggage. So we would load those animals with very heavy baggage, and they would have to carry that. And then I find myself in prison working hard like an ox. And I really felt that this is karma. And so I'm now purifying this kind of karma. And so that is good. I am purifying my karma. I understand this. And whose kindness is this? It's the kindness of the Buddha and the kindness of the Dharma. So in this way, even though we encounter adverse conditions, we can transform all suffering into an experience of happiness. Or for example, during that time, I've also lost everything. I've lost my monastery, my home, my homeland. Everything was lost. And I also felt that now I'm paying back this karmic debt. That the karmic debt of having stolen or taken from others in previous lives. So now I've lost everything. So there are different karmic creditors who come to collect their karmic debts in our lives. So if we have abused others and taken their life, or we have abused and hurt and hit others, then these karmic creditors come back and shorten our life. And then there's those karmic creditors who come for our wealth. That is, if you have stolen or deceived others or robbed others in previous lives, then there are karmic creditors who now come for our wealth. Or if we have killed others and taken their lives, then there are karmic creditors who come for our actual lives. So this is actually taught in the church teachings like that. So ultimately, I understood it was all a creation of self-grasping. It was all the fault of self-grasping. And so this term negativity, that Tibetan, so it's Digpa in Tibetan, and Dig actually implies something that falls back, so it hits you back. So for example, if you throw a rock into the sky right above your head, then it will fall back down onto your head. So that's the actual literal meaning of negativity in Tibetan. And also in the excellent words of advice, in Sakya's excellent words of advice, it says that if you throw some dirt into the sky, it will fall back onto your head. So that is negativity, and that's why the Buddha said, do not commit any wrong, do not commit negativity. Normal people don't understand that what they do will come back to them. And so that is why people in this world cause so much harm to one another. It is really only the fault of not understanding karma. So it is because of these negativities, these misdeeds, that we encounter so much difficulty, and people don't understand that. And so now coming back to my experience again in prison. So I spent 20 years in prison, and people were in deep misery in prison. And so there was actually this time when I was very sick, and I did experience, I was quite miserable physically, and during that time I felt it would be better if I die. So I decided it's better if I die. And so I tried to make them kill me, actually. And so I asked an official to come over to talk to me. And when he came over, I punched him in the face. And I thought, if I punch him, then surely he will kill me. Then I can die. But he didn't kill me, so nobody killed me. However, there were many people in prison who were in so much misery that they even committed suicide. And then now thinking about this unfavorable condition, thinking about it now in hindsight, really I see it was a favorable condition. It was a support to me. For example, in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, to those who desire a wealth of virtue, all those who do harm are like a precious treasure. So then I reflected and I changed my way of thinking about these officials, and I cultivated love for them and compassion because I recognize that these officials too, they don't have any autonomy, they don't have any freedom, they can't help it. They also need to do their job, and they also need food to eat. That's why they're doing their job. So I felt compassion for them. And then also I felt that I will do the best I can in my work. And just think whatever I do, whatever labor I do, it will benefit someone. And so then the time in prison actually became a very good time. I felt very happy. Or another example of one who was truly happy in prison was Khenpo Rinpoche. He actually was able to meditate in prison day and night. That was really due to the kindness and the protection of the 3 jewels. He didn't have to work at all. Throughout the 20 years he was there, he didn't even have to sweep the floor once. So he, in a way, had complete freedom in prison to practice. So he was very happy in prison. It was like a retreat, actually. So also in the prayer for excellent conduct, it says that one of the prayers is that so basically may no matter what how times change and what things may come my way, may nothing affect me negatively. So there are circumstances then where things go wrong, but still you remain unharmed. Just like we mentioned before, even though they tried to bring the teachings down, in the end the teachings blazed even stronger, like fire. And so the bodhisattvas and then in the end remained unharmed, and therefore are able to say, I had a good time in prison, like Khenpo Munso. And also I can say eventually I was actually very happy in prison. Even though it is certainly an adverse condition, I was able to find happiness. And so then for those who do not have much mental courage, for them, when they encounter adverse conditions, it is good to recite such aspiration prayers or make prayers. But for those who do have mental courage, they actually are able to transform suffering into happiness. And so these are all things I have personally experienced in my own life. And so especially during my time in prison, I encountered very miserable, negative conditions, and yet when I was through being able to think about it in the right way, actually the prison cell really became like a retreat hut and became a very good time. And now I really feel that was a good time. And so we can transform things in this way. And this is really how we separate ourselves from adverse conditions. We are not really actually separating ourselves from the situation itself, but we are separating ourselves from suffering in that situation. And so this is the skillful methods of the bodhisattvas.
Simba Maube Jova Bonlasa Maube Letang Modidelenum le Protinjiti no Namsa Yangso Letang Yung Mati the Lete Kang Sason Le Zangi Karina Huna Chevanayi or Jogivan Deva Jamagivan Devadomazo the Numabele Sani Lesani later than me, only young Pena, me party, the Kongishipanaji, Lamin Chevata, Telasova, Top Dongi Deva, Top Test and Philly, the top torso, Ben torso, dark carnation, Tata Tayantini, Ladia Captamsilla, gave a singing some Gangi cassette trailing at the when the Numo Rotoku Mary, Benamasi Lamache, Shipotizam Moyore. She was a say, Nanga do 사람들이 있으면 남들이랑 유몽 같은 마크가 얘는 세대에 대해서 뭐라는 로고 담배를 되는들이 자다 나를 맞다라고 상황 거리 콩 남아에 그것이 계속 말이에요. 오 아니 라로시니 체랑의 추대 좀 말이들 라고스 추대 좀 말이들 콩키보치에 모래다 콩 좀 말이들 참 오다치 무시지도 고거도 아니지서 고거도 추대문에 요 말이들 라고 때리처럼 고사대 따뜻을 빼야돼 고사대게 랍소스 콩게 상모당나 오 같이 대대처럼 받을 송도 대송난 코 때리거든 장 놓고 땅은 말이야 때를 말이지 콩으로도 대송선은 미망고 록다지 오다 기본이 나오다 땅을 거들 록다에서 제노리 남양시에도 매시 대콩 남양시에도 섭들 다 청간을 깡바를 짜로 자막강기라고 해서 정는 노는 잡아서 짜로 집어 짜로 집어서 잡들이 뭔가 서로 야이래 들이 콩 잡도 가봐야 차돌들이 차돌들이 되다 큰 차롱차는데 너무 성화 채소 너무 직장을 깡은 너무 성화 채소 그래서 주도 쏘라는 쏘고서요 일단만 봉송 빼다가 공만 담자 대저를 늘이 조성다 그래요. 홍보도 그 강에 딱지들 리다 쏘를 못다가 난 기본적인 거 봐요. 내가 맞게 콩을 그거 대성 들이 대다를 무슨 먼저 봐. 그래 대다 내용과 대리 조르들이 돈들이 다다들이 공에서 공만은 패비어래. 내가 주성을 주주고로 야채 먹고 나면 데이터가 된 사촉으로 또 데이터가 요래요. 그냥 또 정문에 졸록까지 도성 레기 도성 다들 레디에서 요절이 레기 대화시랑 이제 컴포 뭐 로도가 되는 레기 대화지 대망도래 데이터 레충총 매는 산소를 간 데이터가 말이 데이터를 조정들이 다 당하더니 저다 빼면 처음에 저거지 대단하고 토바메다 계속 따뜻한 기본적인 뭐도 아주는 데 남들이나 라마들이 계획이 저거 담에 뭐 이거 참기를 강에 대해서 때요래 대형의 대담들 그렇다고 요래 세 토끼가 누이를 세다고 도토마데 가래 난 토미가 누이지 레도 유모 받아 돌아오더니 상황 디스트릭이 뭐는 디스트릭에 돌아들이 유모이 실린 적당히 되어는 저 대답이 제가 자체 뭐요 공로발을 치서 저왔더니 이제 단디들은 저왔더니 조랑 제거래 나가시 미시만 뭐 텔레티 돼서 좀 오늘도 다 첨보요 막 그런데 생부터니 칼을 잡으시바 대답을 드리지 참에 고는 상태가 시그래 조는 게지 뭐는 자산의 적당마다 laptop고 요만 이제 조는 게 여기요 레카레레 뉴무마카레 딜레사절 간이 노데 조는 게 여기 뭐요래데 빼내서 사다는 거잖아. 딱히 뭐지 왜 받았잖아. 요 대신에서 공리제 받는 담배를 가는 제토요 말에 최대 내가 도서리 중이나 라는 트바송 좋아 가는 많은 동을 줘봐. 대도 땅에 사탄다면 주 라버드들이 잡요래. 매는 들다 카티 메데치단 파와도 모두 대답을 돌려들이 있는다 남과리 속아서 가타고 말아. 대답도 세배 대답을 해들이 인도는 코를 띄어와리 말이 쫑을 매봐대. 인도는 코를 쪼아리나 강이 최그래. 강에 대들은 최는 강에 대를 못줘봐. 들이 다다다 격에서 못 잡아. 따뜻해서는 뭐와지. 대답 문제지 생각 못 봤다면 무슨 적딩 하나 되다. 적딩스고 그 고증하는 소리. 체인데랑은 통치도 정도 다 답을는데 때네요. 대화 탑지들이 삼제를 맞은 거 적자요 말이지. 너무 말이 나한테도 라니 손님은 책대 세는 요띠리 세는 딱 다좀 책대 찍고 정어야. 내가 아침 모요리 라가 대sem도 정나. 다 뒤비용 뒤용뒤 다 사촉선 좀 두고 요리 되나. 다 아침 모여만 뛰니 봐. 편의점에 하고 고송. 들이 사고 줘봤는데 치수 받다더니 산촉식으로 사고 대병 대통령 송조 동대에 뒤뒤시에 돈은 도와도 가는 거는 사초서 받으지 미성수면 로우요래 미성수는 돈은 그래서 플라이 같았다 왜 제발께서 샤와카지는 성어에 미성수는 생기 돈은 하여 가고요시 데이터 성요래
And then, so we come to page 21, and then next is the verse for praying to tirelessly take birth in samsara for the sake of others. May I be free from karma, emotional afflictions, and the influence of demons, like the lotus unsoiled by the mire, or like the sun and moon in a clear sky, so that I may proceed unhindered. So may I be free from karma and your emotional afflictions. So again, we already mentioned that before. How do we create such negative karma that we experience suffering? So we have said that in a past life, if we engage in virtuous actions, we now experience happiness, and as a result of non-virtuous actions, we experience suffering. And so whatever karma we create with an afflicted mind will ripen. But then also, as you mentioned before, we can take it as the path as it ripens. And we mentioned that there is this method of transforming suffering into happiness. And so therefore, this is how great masters, for example, in prison, have liberated themselves from great suffering. So during that time, when the barbarians took over the country, many spiritual masters encountered great difficulties, but they took it as the path. There's one more example. Another Lama called at that time in prison Khenpo Tenzin Sangpo. And he really overcame the difficulty himself. And so now in terms of like kind of an obstruction or like a mara, there is an outer, inner, and a secret aspect. And on the inner level, it is the afflictive emotions. And on the outer level, however, often unfavorable conditions are encountered as a result of corrupt aspirations or these barbarian kind of views. And so anyways, there was one time Khenpo Tenzin Sangpo, he told this story and from his time in prison, and he said that so when he was in prison, those officials would tell him that you have to tell others, your disciples, that the Dharma is just a lie. And so the reason why they would say that to him is because he was a great Khenpo. He had many disciples, and people had a lot of faith in him. So if he would go to people and say, oh, the Dharma is all a lie, it's not true, there's no real Dharma, and people would believe him, they would turn away from the Dharma. So those officials told him, so you go and tell your people that the Dharma is fake. And if you do that, then we will give you a lot of money and a status and so on. However, he was reflecting and he thought that there's nothing worse to do, because if I would tell people that the Dharma is a lie, then so many people would develop a wrong view towards the Dharma. And so he refused to say that to people at any cost, even at the cost of his life. So he never said anything. And so then as a punishment, they put him in iron metal shackles. And so they tied up his hands, and then they put his legs in, his feet in shackles. And then they put him outside. They let him sit outside. It was quite cold. And the shackles were really tight, so he was bleeding. And because it was so cold, his toes froze, and then they fell off. The toes fell off, and he actually didn't have a single toe left. And so that is an example of someone who would not give up his commitment, even at the cost of his life. He would not tell such things to his people. And so then in the end, when times changed, he became free, and he became a great master. So as you mentioned before, who gave many teachings. So as you mentioned before, the teachings cannot really be suppressed. And if they are suppressed, then they will blaze even stronger. And there's actually an image of this Lama here too. So we have an image here, and so that's one of my gurus, and he was really an example of a really fearless master. And later, when he became free, he taught the Dharma, and he had really a vast assembly. That is the power of a bodhisattva like that. And this is how, in the end, even though they encounter such a negative condition, they again become free. And of course, when things like that happen, it probably also is, of course, related to some karma that is ripening, because even the slightest karma cannot ripen if there's no prior cause. But then also, he became liberated and even more powerful than before. There were many other examples, for example, Khenpo Chingme Punsok, or His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who have all encountered some difficulties, but again were able to free themselves from that and become even greater. So that happens on the outer level. Then on the inner level, they become liberated from this demon of afflictive emotions and karma. And on a secret level, there is Buddha nature. And on the basis of knowing that, they are able to transform afflictions into wisdom and suffering into happiness. And so actually this is a topic that we can really speak on really extensively. You should ask your questions about that during the discussion group and really discuss that with each other. I do not know how to explain that really elaborately, but I know that this prayer is really very precious. And you should definitely discuss that with each other. So, for example, you should ask each other or the teacher, now what does this mean? What about the afflictive emotions? And what about karma and so on? So just discuss things like that. I myself, I'm really only able to maybe explain 1% of all of that. And so in any case, as we can see in those examples of great masters like Khenpo Chingme Punsok and so forth, or Khenpo Tenzin Sangpo, in the end, no one could really affect them negatively at all. So there was this time during the cultural turmoil when we were not even allowed to recite the Mani mantra or hold a mala in our hands. And the Buddha's teachings were completely suppressed. But then again, as you mentioned yesterday, when they are suppressed, later they are blazing even stronger, like fire. So no one can really stop the teachings ultimately. And so that was just one example. And so then here, we are praying to take birth in samsara for the sake of others. And so when we take birth in samsara for the sake of others, we may encounter difficulties. But then in the end, we come out unharmed. And so that is the power of the aspiration. And it's also the power of one's own mind or one's own practice. Lord Jigten Sumgön also said in the Gongchik, so in one's own life, in what we practice in our own life, with whatever we encounter and whatever we see. And so when we experience happiness, for instance, it all arises from love. And when we experience suffering, it arises from self-grasping. All suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. So if you understand this, it is really like you have received a piece of gold. And you just need to know how to hold on to these words. And then they become very powerful. If you hold on to these words, you will also be able to transform suffering into happiness and develop great qualities then these words really become very powerful. For example, if you just then hear the name of this prayer for excellent conduct, already the seed of bodhicitta is planted into your mind. And so when the bodhisattvas take birth in order to benefit beings, they would even go, and they would go anywhere in the 6 realms of samsara. They would even go into the 3 lower realms. But they don't see them as miserable states the way we see them. In a confession text, for example, it says that when those bodhisattvas go into the hell realms, they see it like the meadow, a meadow in the god realm. So even though they go into the lower realms, they are still very happy.
산지 조바라 심진 피도 바래들이 다치와 요만에 다다 개비신이 삼지 추송만 삼지라 사제 좀 되게 소는 강을 줄 나와 되다가 로로다나 도로 잡았다면 대대 삼지 롱잡을 롱속을 피왕을 송 대삼지 추그 피는 삼 로 라마스 예고동 미사 다게 탈라 잡고 자고요 대 가리 잡고 용이 대 답을 취재 용이 답을 추가 가리 빈 거니다 다 민송속의 등에 단디를 송데 단디를 유무와 제대 저서 저대는 레벨이 되게 송송 배는 냐와야다 돌로송데 냐와야다 돌로송 세당 세나 목숨 송송고래 대 저대로 매도 상원도 대비바세 para 다다디 대화 매바다 추시에고래 상속세도 못 되게고 요래 들대라더니 안로와 탐제를 핀발죠 강 핀거는 주라 닝게다 모남데 왕게 삼지 제와 랑네 심지제 동도 봐 몸바오서 다다다 공거지 상속스마 바오서 상속 샘데 인핀 로르들 바오 착거리 내 공기 버튼 그 남탕 무슨 시에바나지 상속스마 사지 좀 되게 그거서 장매봐 다음에 있으면 초사서 되게 바로도 스마 돌리다 다 개비신이 담절 됐다면 그냥 똑같이 대답하서는 쉽지 싸움들이 동대답을 듣고 대답질라 대답이 강기 용어들 자상적인 용어들이 상적심을 바오해 빌은 마지로 보고서 요나요 바오 용나 보지들 강이 같이 야고 탕체야 요 말에 다 바오 차대로 그 나이 보거리 상들이 되래 다 되게 세 가지 돌아로 그러대 손남 그게 양다 토야요로 손 저쪽 토야요디 사진은 제고 토야요 말때 때들 얘기다 다 못나고 가 다들이 철제와는 랭거요래 이 기와는 능력하리 다 취시바 코나래 때때는 단담을 개비시 수송만 탐지 다 치모래 다 때도는 가리스는 땅들이 뒤배용되다 성마다 소소로 상척세워 요나 대대대 서바 제거래지 서바 제라 이리 또 심도 됐다고 요래시 다 되는거지 다 레마르 배산제 마시는 책되는 용도거지 드리테라 돈나 땅하고 사족선 럽 사족선 송 사족선 만남바 메디베 저저테르티니 땅에 사족선이 속다들이 너는 삼제데 즈베다 보자가 인시다 가리게 다 보면 라나 핀바다 이는 데베 찌뽀테들이 또 삼제들이 샤티 이르지 티사로 세속제들이 딱 보면 즈바 속체체 동물이 어떤 기본적인 배자 배대다 동고 요사래 내들 저들이 난걸 공나면 저저 저 제시고리 Teri ngabe shi yung mari teri.
And then next is to bring benefit and happiness to all sentient beings. So it says, throughout all the lands, in all the directions, may I relieve the sufferings of the lower realms. May I be able to bring happiness to and provide benefit for all living beings. So the Buddha's aspiration was to benefit beings, and therefore he accumulated merit for 3 endless aeons. That is because he vowed to remain for as long as sentient beings remain. And for as long as sentient beings remain, there is suffering. And there is no suffering that doesn't arise from the afflictive emotions. So if we want to eliminate the lower realms, we need to eliminate self-grasping and the afflictive emotions. If we do not eliminate the cause, we cannot avoid the result. And so for this reason, in order for beings to understand that, we need Dharma teachings. And therefore, I believe that there is really no greater benefit than teaching the Dharma to others. The greatest offering to the Buddhas and benefit to sentient beings is to teach the Dharma. It is most precious. That is why all the spiritual masters in the world, when they teach the Dharma, that is really most excellent. And because they taught the Dharma, we consider them as so, the Dharma is so precious that when, for example, when they pass away and we get a piece of their body or a piece of their robes, then we want to hold on to that. We want to keep that because it's very precious. We remember the qualities of the Dharma. So the quality of the Dharma is that we understand that all the suffering in the 3 lower realms arises from self-grasping and karma. So because we grasp at a self, we give rise to afflictive emotions and we engage in action, and that will ripen in the end. And we take birth, for example, in the 3 lower realms, in the hells as hungry spirits or as animals. So what causes birth in these realms is hatred, stinginess, and ignorance. These are the seeds, like the seeds of a flower. So therefore, it's very important to teach them Dharma, to introduce others to the importance of bodhicitta, to compassion, the power of aspiration prayer. And so through the great courage of these great bodhisattvas, they will always take birth intentionally for the sake of sentient beings. They are courageous, they're like heroes and fearless. And so one example I just mentioned was that of Khenpo Tenzin Sangpo, who was a true bodhisattva. Just like the Buddha who accumulated merit in 3 endless aeons for the sake of others. He practiced the 6 paramitas during all this time. So the spiritual masters with such great courage are willing to undergo all sorts of difficulties for the sake of sentient beings. And that's a quality of bodhicitta. So bodhicitta makes one become courageous or fearless. Or even in a smaller sense, for example, a mother who cares for her child. No matter how difficult the child is, the mother will never get tired of caring for her child. She will always think of her child. But because she thinks it's my child, maybe half of the merit is lost, but there's still merit and the results will still be experienced. But for as long as there is this self-grasping, of course, one does not attain enlightenment. And so through the power of aspiration prayers, these great beings take birth intentionally for the sake of others. And what do they accomplish or do when they take birth? They teach the Dharma to others. And so that is why it is so precious when these spiritual teachers around the world are teaching the Dharma to others. And I think this is really the greatest benefit. And so that this courage comes from a mind of bodhicitta. So So these words are really precious. It's more important to pass this on, even if one doesn't not able to pass on any money and so on. These words are really most precious. And so when we have these words and understand these, then we can hold on to bodhicitta and not allow bodhicitta to decline. So basically what these teachers are telling us is that cultivate love and protect this love with patience. And if you do so, it is to your own benefit and to for the happiness of others. And so this is the kind of courage we want to cultivate ultimately. And so one example of such a courageous being that I mentioned was that of Khenpo Tenzin from the time in prison. And so this is all my understanding, but I don't know how to explain that well. So you still have to ask questions to the other masters. You really have to know how to ask questions, because I also don't know how to explain everything.
So so ni jin the pasar song saping somebody dila tap naman hato so go mong so ni the pasar so tamji la jiao senji the ju de tong ba ji senji ran ge samba de yo de le tu ni de ran ge de te pa chi zhong gang ge ran ni da xie le te pa chi zhong de wo xie ge yo le 소장 나서 남들은 말이 이들이 대 취지 부모 예세 이동성 바디 산초점 도의 적들을 탑 남만하도 탑망가 매바디 왕보노부 왕수는 가지 색바치범 하디 소장 나서 남들은 가래를 강을 한들 동시에서 자다 저발 대선 거리 데이터에 제공을 제르시는 산초쪽과 용도 조시 제행들 돈나 디고 산촉세고 소대를 똑바로 되지 람들은 로서바 람과 가리는 람다 되네 대송거 살이지 다른 제시지 바만 도도 배요리 자들이네 다막게 뭐 통이 생적만 로마다 지도 요리 리시드 십자지 마시베니 섬등은 소리 뭐를 돼서 다투고요 말이 이게 지금 따다 대외대 개왕 공놈의 요리 મને તો જામ્પુ કાઠી હન રોજ સવારે કે બોતી દેર મોજે તે યાને તેની તે માકે જકું તા મકતમ દુને તે તો માને કે તાતારે તે રંગ સહબ છેટા તા થામે હા કોન રંગ તે યો તા હા કોસા તે યો જા દે જા નો રોગો રે સજી તાકે જો다 또 સજી 탐지 줘봐도 초리들이 로고 가르래들 별로 더 고다니 오 동로다 영도를 때라서 와르다면 데이터에 잡아지고 왔어요. 랑 타고 들어야 돼. 레주가 완성돼. 디단기들이 미나더니 따뜻한 만나서 요리도 동로 해봐. 탑을 개배도 막아서 탑방 먹을 때는 샘치 다그 주당 통만주 총관주서 데레데레 돌아티 탑통을 줘 가리리 샘들은 삼들이 지네 데를 담아 대봐 뭐봐 가와 좀 지네 뒤 샘들이 좋았다는데 샘이 차가운데 셔 탑라들이 가리는 라면 탑만 가면 봐도 대동시고 살이 내려만 보고 살이 콩는 벌제 저 많죠 나가 잠시 그 이제
And then we come to page 23. So that is donning the armor and praying to be tireless in methods to accomplish the benefit of others. So regarding the donning of armor, it means that we, as the Buddha has said, the Buddha tamed sentient beings according to their needs. Sentient beings must be tamed according to their needs. And one cannot tame sentient beings all in the same way. So therefore, Sakya Pandita also said, when only seeing it from one side, one is blinded. But from seeing it from two sides, awareness becomes clear. So the Buddha tamed sentient beings, benefited sentient beings according to their individual states of mind, their activities, and so forth, their specific needs. And as a result of a great variety of specific needs, the Buddha taught the 84,000 Dharma teachings, or the 3 levels of the path of Pratimoksha, Bodhisattva, and the Vajrayana. So it is said in the Vajrayana, for example, is said to be very rich in skillful means that require the least difficulty, and it is meant for those with sharp mental faculties. So the Buddha taught tamed sentient beings in various ways according to their needs. One must be skillful when benefiting others. So this is what this verse is speaking about, and this is what I believe it is speaking about, and I myself am not able to explain that well. I really actually would want to explain that well, but I can't see well, so I can't really consult with long commentaries, even though I really would like to explain that in much more detail, because this is very profound, and it's also very beautiful verses. I just can't see very well, and that is why we have this great master. Shem already had given extensive teaching on this text before, and so as a result of that, we are able to understand some. And so I myself would like to give a detailed instruction, and I'm not able to go into much more detail. But this text really has, this prayer really has so many blessings, and so therefore those who masters who are connected to me, they give an explanation on this text, on the root verses, and so this particular verse here, so fully accomplishing the activities of enlightenment may work in harmony with the needs of all beings. So in harmony with the needs of all beings. So for example, if we want to benefit a certain being like an animal, is a different way of benefiting them. For example, we can benefit them by providing a liberation by seeing or liberation by tasting. So depending on the sentient beings' individual karmas and their karmic fortunes, we benefit them skillfully in many different ways. So we have to be skillful when it comes to benefiting sentient beings. And so in brief, the ultimate result, or the ultimate meaning really of this verse, again, is that in whichever way we are benefiting sentient beings skillfully, the result of that must be that love arises in their mind. So first, actually, a faith and devotion and a joy or inspiration arises in their minds, and then love arises in their minds. And then that love then melts the ice block in their mind. So there are many skillful means to bring them to that state. And so this is my take on that, and I'm certain there are many more vast explanations that could be given on that verse, and so for that you have to ask these masters there and discuss it with each other. And so this is my commentary on this. Please take a break for 20 minutes.
So everyone just stay for just a short announcement. Rinpoche would like to take a group photo with us here. So we're going to meet in 15 minutes at 10:45.